Yunganaya, Yakanoya, Namani. Dear brothers and sisters, how are you? Honourary Matt, Docherty, Vienna. My name is Matt and I'm a non-Jerry person from Point Macleay down in the south. My name is Butni Kanayatana. Hello and welcome to Kaurna country. I would like to acknowledge this land we meet on today as the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. We respect their spiritual relationships with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Jubilee region. We also recognise all the Aboriginal people that live on this land, that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important for the people today. Thank you.
Can I acknowledge His Excellency Mr Hugh Van Lee, the Governor's Deputy of South Australia, the Honourable Jay Weatherall, the Premier of South Australia, the Honourable Michael O'Brien, Minister for Finance and the Member for Napier, the Honourable John Dawkins, MLC, Member of the Legislative Council, and representing the Leader of the Opposition, Lee Oldenwilder, Member for Little Parra, Tony Piccolo, Member for Light, Nick Champion, the Federal Member for Wakefield, Tom Zorich, representing Senator Sean Evans, His Worship, the Mayor of the City of Playford, Mr Glenn Docherty, members from my old school, who certainly sound much better than I ever did, Matt, well done, and also members from the RAF. I thank the Premier and the Mayor of Playford for the opportunity to join you this evening to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of the reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Elizabeth II was the first reigning monarch to set foot on Australian soil, coming ashore at Farm Cove in Sydney on the 3rd of February 1954. In that and her subsequent 16 visits, she's been greeted with honest enthusiasm and enjoys almost universal respect and allegiance amongst the Australian community. And we've been very fortunate to see her in South Australia on 7 occasions, 2 in Elizabeth in 1963 and 1977. But Her Majesty's service to Australia in this state is not just limited to her visits to the shore. In fact, Her Majesty is patron of 29 Australian institutions and organisations. Yet I doubt these impressive statistics alone provide an accurate picture of her contribution to the Commonwealth and Australia over the past 60 years. Her Majesty has been the one positive constant in an ever-changing world. As befits the times, Her Majesty has taken steps to ensure the relevance of the monarchy in the modern era. Over time, she's abandoned some of the formalities and granted wider public access to selected palaces, sites and treasures. Throughout her reign, we've witnessed a strong sense of duty and diligence and the dispatch of the monarch's business with great candour, efficiency and dignity. She has been a wonderful moral leader and an exemplary role model for us all. In our audience with Her Majesty at Windsor Castle in 2009, Liz and I experienced her first-hand extensive knowledge of current affairs and her keen interest in Australian events. And whilst it can't always be shown in public, she has a wonderful sense of humour and a great warmth of presence. Such warmth was evident before she ascended the throne. At the height of the London Blitz in October 1940, aged 14, the then Princess Elizabeth started a weekly radio program to offer words of encouragement and support to the youth of London. Subsequently, she served as a second subaltern in the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the Women's Division of the British Army. Yet royalty has not shielded this remarkable woman from life's trials and tribulations. She's experienced family woes, from death to divorce and scandal. However, with the sense and support of the Duke of Edinburgh, she's maintained a sense of dignity and decorum which endears her to people throughout the world. By any account, Her Majesty has led the Commonwealth with extraordinary dedication, with great wisdom and with an impeccable sense of judgment. Through a life of duty and obligation, she has been the decisive force in forging and sustaining links amongst Commonwealth countries. Tonight we join together to celebrate this remarkable woman and her achievements. With the utmost respect, I commend and congratulate Her Majesty on the achievements of her Diamond Jubilee, and I wish her many more years of continued health and great service.
Your Excellency, I join with you in the acknowledgements that you've made of particular guests here today, particularly my co-host for this occasion, Glenn Docherty, the Mayor of the City of Playford, and all who have chosen to join us in this event. I'd also like to acknowledge the Ghana welcome delivered by a young Narrandjeri man. Thank you very much for that welcome to country. Well, we're all involved in a piece of history here this evening. It's a ceremony to acknowledge the quite extraordinary achievement and contribution that has been made by the Queen over a period that has passed the 60-year mark earlier this year. Only one other monarch has reigned for more than 60 years. That monarch was also a woman, the present Queen's great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, whose statue is near the middle of the square, named after her in the city of Adelaide. Whatever that may say about the sturdiness and commitment of these two remarkable women, one thing is clear: you need to start young. And for Her Majesty, that involved the pain of losing a parent early in her own adult life. She was 25 at the time. As the Governor has said, not long afterwards she made the first of her many visits to Australia, and that 1954 visit was the first time a reigning monarch had come to this country. This long history of service means that for most of us, Her Majesty has been Queen for the whole of our lives. The result is that we all have memories and impressions of the Queen that are influenced by our own time, our own era. My own enduring first impressions are of a picture on the wall, the schoolroom wall. Every school had plenty of these pictures, and as I discovered later, so did almost every public place. Post offices, church halls, waiting rooms and all the rest, there was the picture on the wall. At school we regularly sang God Save the Queen, which was then the Australian national anthem, and of course is still the British national anthem. Sometimes at school there are assemblies in the quadrangle, that sort of parade ground space between the buildings which used to be so much part of school design. At these assemblies they would play a recorded performance of an anthem sung by the school choir, and I'm glad that we have a live choir here this evening. Then there was Christmas Day. My grandmother insisted that everything had to stop while we gathered in front of the television to watch and listen to the Queen's Christmas Day message. As the Governor has mentioned, the Queen has had to deal with enormous change during her reign. Well, at the beginning, those Christmas Day messages were only available in Australia as radio broadcasts, and the technology of those times meant that tape recordings or film had to be flown to Australia in advance and distributed right around the country so the message could be transmitted at the right time. In later life, I had the opportunity to be present at our state reception for the Queen as a Minister-designate when she visited this country just after the state election in 2002. It says something of her dedication and her strength that she was able to fulfil that agenda with dignity and good humour while carrying the burden of the death of her sister only weeks earlier. Now, 10 years later, we mark this historic achievement of dedicated service as monarch, the second monarch to reach that milestone. And we mark it with a ceremony which has its own history. Beacons were lit for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897, and for our present Queen's Silver and Gold Jubilees in 1977 and 2002. Through history, chains of beacons have been used as communications, and they were famously used in the age of the first Queen Elizabeth, more than 400 years ago, to warn of the approach of an armed and unfriendly fleet, the Spanish Armada. Indeed, if you Google the name Beacon Hill for England, you'll still find lots of them scattered through the counties. This time, we are part of a chain of beacons around the world. It began a few hours ago with a beacon being lit in Tonga. It will end tomorrow morning our time when the Queen lights the last beacon in the chain late on Monday evening British time. In this way, we respectfully congratulate her on the achievement of her Diamond Jubilee. We celebrate with her and we wish her many more years of continued health, knowing that means many more years of service.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to His Excellency Rear Admiral Kevin Scarce, Administrator of the Government of the Commonwealth of Australia, the Honourable J. Weatherall MP, Premier of South Australia, and our distinguished guests. Good evening and welcome here this evening to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of the reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We are celebrating here in Elizabeth, the town that was named for Her Majesty and inaugurated by the Premier of South Australia, Sir Thomas Playford, on November the 16th, 1955. This new town was developed by the South Australian Housing Trust and was originally known as Newtown, and it was built as a planned satellite city, comprising a series of neighbourhoods around a common heart of a town centre where we are today. There would be factories that were separated from neighbourhoods. There'd be large amounts of playing fields that were provided so every family could enjoy this spacious new city on the edge of Adelaide. And this is still true of Elizabeth today. When Elizabeth was opened, there were 150 houses already built by the Housing Trust, and they wanted to call this new town Playford. But the owner of that name, Sir Thomas, was resolutely opposed. So, at the time, the Housing Trust suggested to Sir Thomas that he had to choose a name. He decided that as the location was near the Edinburgh airfield, and that Adelaide was named after a queen, and that the other queen that was currently abode, Elizabeth, had not been used anywhere else around the state, he thought it seemed appropriate. So with the permission of Her Majesty the Queen, the Premier Playford was able to name that the Premier himself was quite delighted to make sure that this city, this new town, had a vital ingredient in success for the new visitors from the United Kingdom that would call this place home. I have a special account that was taken by Miss Patricia Russell, who was in the crowd on the day on November 16, 1955. And she explains what happened for the naming of this new town. He, Sir Thomas Playford, took a slip of paper from his pocket and said in a mighty voice, "With the gracious permission of Her Majesty the Queen, I have great pleasure in formally naming this town Elizabeth." A momentary hush fell over the crowd. A stunned silence reigned. No one had thought, no one had guessed. Then a murmur of shock ran through the crowd. A turning point of great pleasure, followed by a loud applause, delight and excitement by all that were present. So from the beginning of this city, the migrants that come from the United Kingdom had a connection to their new land, named after our Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. They had some familiarity and some reassurance from the home they had come from to the home they now came to, that it had a historic link to the United Kingdom. And in fact, many of our citizens today still have that vital family link with the United Kingdom and are proud to be associated with Queen Elizabeth II. So during Her Majesty's reign, the city of Elizabeth has continued to grow, and today, under the guise of the city of Playford, is the fastest growing council area in South Australia, with Elizabeth still the jewel in the crown of Playford. So I welcome and thank you all for joining us today to celebrate Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee, a remarkable queen with steadfast passion and commitment for all who dwell within the Commonwealth. We here in Playford recognise her brilliant and sturdy success over her reign and will always proclaim God save the Queen.
Fremont Elizabeth City High School, and students from Mark Oliphant College, and obviously these gentlemen on my right. On behalf of the state government and the City of Playford, thank all the community that have come out tonight. It is a little chilly out there, but we know what a significant occasion this is, so we do thank you for coming out this evening. Please travel home safely, and